Hi, I'm Clara, and I thought I knew everything about loyalty. My sister and I were raised on the same stories: how our grandparents built everything from scratch, how family came before money, and how inheritance was never supposed to matter more than love. But I learned that money doesn't change people, it just shows you who they really were the whole time. Our grandmother passed away 3 years ago. She was the kind of woman who smelled like lavender and always kept extra cookies hidden behind the flower jar. Her house, a pale yellow cottage at the edge of town, was where we spent every summer. She'd tell us stories about how the land was meant to stay in the family. My sister, Anna, would roll her eyes and whisper that we were living in the Dark Ages. I used to laugh it off. Back then, I thought she was just being dramatic. When Grandma passed, the lawyer said the property and all her savings would be split evenly between us, half to me, half to Anna. We signed the papers together, sitting side by side at the long oak table in that same cottage. She squeezed my hand and said, 50-50, right? I smiled and said, always, but people change after funerals. A few months later, Anna said she needed some of her share early, just to pay off a few things. I didn't ask what those things were. She'd always been the spontaneous one, the risk taker, the I'll figure it out type. So, when she mentioned selling just the land part, I didn't panic. Grandma's will said neither of us could sell without mutual consent. I assumed she was just talking in frustration. Then one Friday morning, I got an email from a real estate agency congratulating me for the successful closing of the Maplewood property. My hands went numb. I called Anna over and over. Nothing. I called the lawyer. He confirmed it. The deed had been transferred, sold for $420,000. My sister's name and mine were both on it. Except my signature wasn't mine. For 2 days, I didn't sleep. I went from shock to fury, to a kind of quiet that felt dangerous. On the third day, she finally called. Her voice was too calm. I didn't think you'd understand, she said. It was just sitting there. And Grandma would have wanted us to use it for something real. Something real? I said. You forged my name on a deed. I had to. She whispered. You would have stopped me. You always stop me. That sentence stayed in my head like a curse. You always stop me. She hung up, and I sat in silence staring at the framed picture of Grandma on my kitchen counter, the one where she was holding both of our hands, smiling like she believed we'd never let go of each other. The next morning, I drove straight to the courthouse and filed a fraud report. But you know what the clerk said. It's a family matter, ma'am. Maybe you can work it out privately. The words family matter have never felt so cruel. Weeks passed. My sister stopped answering messages completely. Our mutual friends said she'd left town with her boyfriend. One of them mentioned she'd bought a new car and rented a luxury condo near the lake. I didn't need to hear more. Every detail felt like another nail in the coffin of the person I thought she was. And then, almost 2 months later, a letter arrived in the mail. The envelope was cream-colored, the handwriting shaky but unmistakable. It was Grandma's. It had been sealed and left with the family lawyer to be delivered when both granddaughters had settled the estate. My breath caught when I read the first line. If you're reading this, It means one of you broke our promise. The letter shook in my hands. I sat at the kitchen table, the same place I'd signed birthday cards and paid utility bills, and read it twice before I could breathe properly. If you're reading this, it means one of you broke our promise. When you were little, I told you both that land remembers hands. It remembers the hands that plant and repair and forgive. My wish was simple. Neither of you sells without the other's blessing. If the day ever comes when one of you tries to cash out the other, I've left instructions. There was a second envelope inside, smaller, sealed in red wax, and labeled for the lawyer only, with both girls present. At the bottom of the main letter, in careful script, Grandma had written, "Clara, the photocopies you need are in the cottage attic. North wall, tin box, the one with the biscuit label." I called the lawyer and handed her the letter. She exhaled through her nose, the closest thing she had to a laugh. "Bring the tin box if you can find it," she said. "And Clara, don't call your sister yet." I drove to the cottage that afternoon. The key still fit. It always smelled faintly of jam and wood polish, like the past had been simmering on low heat and never burned. In the attic, dust turned the light into snow. The north wall hid a narrow panel behind a rack of winter coats. The tin biscuit box was there, exactly where Grandma said it would be. Inside, property tax receipts going back 30 years, a bundle of photographs of the backyard, oak as it grew from shoulder height to a canopy, and a manila folder labeled "Promise." My throat tightened when I slid the papers out. The folder held two things that mattered. A notarized agreement Grandma had made us sign when we turned 18. I barely remembered it. A tradition, she'd called it, stating we would not sell, transfer, or encumber the property without mutual written consent. A recorded covenant, an actual stamped document from the county, attaching that promise to the deed. It didn't forbid selling. It required the two signatures. Any sale without both would cloud title until corrected. I took pictures of everything, hands shaking, then drove straight to the lawyer's office. She spread the documents out and nodded slowly. "This," she said, tapping the recorded covenant, "isn't sentimental. It's enforceable. If the title company missed it, they've got a problem, not you. And if your sister forged your name, the buyer's title is clouded, and the funds are probably sitting in escrow, meaning your sister may not have her money." Yet, the next hour moved in quiet, decisive steps. My lawyer called the title company, then the buyer's attorney, then the county recorder to confirm the covenant on the deed. Each call landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading, phones picking up, voices sharpening. By evening, we knew this. The title company had missed Grandma's covenant. The sale had closed, but the title insurer was now freezing payout, pending a defect review. The buyer, a young family with 2 kids, had boxes in their hallway and panic in their voices. I felt my chest cave a little. "I don't want to ruin their life," I said. "You're not," my lawyer replied. "Your sister made choices. We're going to fix them." We set a meeting for Friday. Me, the buyers, the title company, and both attorneys. My lawyer opened Grandma's second envelope in front of me, as instructed. Inside was a 1-page letter, calm and surgical. If consent is broken, the granddaughter who kept the promise is trustee for the remedy. The remedy is either buyback at cost or reversal of sale. I have provided a modest fund to help with fees. Key enclosed. A tiny key fell into my lawyer's palm. Safety deposit. My grandmother, the woman who hid cookies behind flour, had built a failsafe behind love. That night, Anna finally texted, "Stop whatever you're doing. You're going to ruin me." I stared at the screen until the dots disappeared. Then another message. Ty and I already signed things. It's done. Don't be dramatic. A third. You always wanted control. Congratulations. I didn't answer. I put the phone face down and poured water for the first time that day. When it was quiet, I imagined Grandma at the oak table, tapping the deed with her finger, saying what she'd always said when we bickered over small things, girls. The door matters more than who walks through first. Friday came like a held breath. The buyers were kinder than they had any reason to be. They loved the yard. They'd already measured for bunk beds. The husband kept apologizing for being part of this, as if any of it were his fault. I told them the truth. I wanted them to have a home. I wanted to keep a promise. The title company, red-faced and very polite, offered two options on the spot: unwind the sale entirely, or allow me, as covenant trustee, to buy the house back at the exact closing price. No fees, no penalties. The funds to my sister would remain locked until the cloud cleared. I asked for 24 hours. Then I drove to the bank with my lawyer and Grandma's key. The safety deposit box slid out like a small miracle. Inside was a cashier's check made years ago, but updated through a linked account, labeled First Door Fund, and a note: "There are some contracts you don't sign with ink." This one, I did. I closed my eyes and cried in the quiet metallic room, where even grief sounded respectful. When I lifted my head, I knew exactly what to do. The next morning, I drove to the city where Anna was living now, or hiding, depending on how you looked at it. Her address was listed on the deed paperwork: a rented condo with glass walls that looked down on the lake. Everything about it screamed temporary success, the kind that runs out faster than people think. She opened the door half a minute after I knocked, her face pale but perfectly made up. She looked older than I remembered, or maybe guilt just doesn't photograph well in real life. "What are you doing here?" she asked, folding her arms. "I came to give you a choice," I said. "Grandma left a covenant. The sale isn't legal without both signatures." Her eyes darted to the side. "You're bluffing." "I'm not," I said, "and the title company froze your payment. So unless you want fraud charges on your record, we need to talk." For a long moment, she didn't speak. She just stared at the floor, jaw trembling slightly. "I thought you'd just let it go," she finally said. "You always did." "Not this time." She laughed once, a brittle sound that didn't make it past her throat. "You don't understand. Ty and I needed a way out. He lost his job. The debts. You forged my name." My voice was low, but it landed sharp. "You didn't ask. You didn't explain. You just took..." Her eyes filled with tears that looked half rehearsed. I was going to pay you back. I swear. Once we flipped another property. Stop. I held up a hand. You sold our grandmother's house like it was a used car. You didn't even tell me. I didn't think it mattered to you anymore. She said quietly. You never visit. You moved on. I thought, you thought wrong, I said. She sank into a kitchen chair and covered her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know about the covenant. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that somewhere under all that fear and selfishness, the sister I grew up with still existed. The one who braided my hair before dances and helped me hide report cards. But apologies are lighter than truth. And truth always waits. I'm buying the house back, I said. The money Grandma left is enough. You're not getting a cent from it. She looked up sharply. You can't just cut me out. You already did that, I said. I'm just finishing what you started. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I turned to leave, and she whispered something so soft I almost missed it. Does it feel good? I stopped at the door. No, I said. It feels necessary. That was the last thing I ever said to her in person. When I returned to the title office the next day, I signed the papers that restored the property. Not to me, but to the buyers. Grandma's covenant didn't require ownership. It required protection. The young couple looked at me like they didn't know whether to thank me or hug me. Their daughter, no older than 5, handed me a drawing of a house with a big tree and 2 smiling stick figures. On the top, she'd written in shaky letters, Home. It's strange how something that simple can undo weeks of anger. I smiled, folded the drawing carefully, and told them to keep the backyard oak watered. Afterward, the lawyer asked if I wanted to pursue legal charges against Anna. I told her no. Let the silence teach her what the law can't, I said. That evening, I went back to the yellow cottage one last time. The air was cool, the light soft enough to forgive everything it touched. I sat on the porch steps, unfolded Grandma's original letter, and read it aloud until the sky went gray. Love is not a ledger. It's a legacy. Protect it, but don't hoard it. I left a copy of that letter inside the kitchen drawer, right where Grandma used to keep her cookie tin. Then I locked the door, turned the key twice, and placed it gently in the mailbox. The property records would later show my name only once, under trustee. I liked it that way. The house wasn't a prize. It was a promise. One that would keep breathing, even when we didn't. Sometimes, when I drive past Maplewood, I see the porch light glowing, the curtains moving slightly with the night air, and I imagine Grandma sitting there, smiling, knowing that the door stayed open, just like she wanted, and that, in the end, was worth more than any inheritance could ever be.